Okay, so now we're going to talk about complex fractions. Don't let the words freak you out. Complex just means a fraction divided by a fraction. So I'm going to start by reminding you how we do this. This is something you should already know, but don't worry if you don't. I'm just going to remind you. So we have a fraction, 5/18, divided by, that's what this sign always means, this line, divided by 45/22. So we're going to do something called copy dot flip. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to copy the first fraction, so that's the numerator, exactly like it is. I'm not going to change anything. And then dot, I change the divide into multiply because we can't divide fractions, we have to multiply them. And then I'm going to take the denominator, the second fraction, and flip it. So 22/45. Now I just cross cancel anything I can. Remember, that's just reducing in an X instead of straight up and down. So 5 can go into itself once and into 45 9 times. Well, let's see. What can go into both 18 and 22? Looks like the best I can do is 2. So 2 goes into 18 9 times and into 22 11 times. You notice how I cross them out and then I write what's left above and below, even if it's just a 1. Be sure to do that or you'll get yourself mixed up, especially if all you have left in either the numerator or the denominator are 1s. It'll just help you to have them. Okay, now multiplying, I just multiply up my numerator. 1 times 11 is 11, and I multiply up my denominator. 8 times 8 is 81, and I'm done. Now, let's look at how this works with the stuff that we have. It's exactly the same idea, but we've got letters and things we're going to have to factor and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do copy dot flip. So I copy the first one, or the numerator, the top one, exactly like it is, dot, change the divide to multiply, and flip the second one, or the denominator. And now I see what I can cross cancel. Well, I can get one n out of this, and one n out of that, leaving me an n. I can get one m out of that and take one m away from here, leaving me with one m, with 3 m's. M to the 4th minus m is m to the 3rd. And so now I just multiply up my numerator. 1 times 1 is 1, and I multiply up my denominator. N times m to the 3rd gives me m to the 3rd n. And that's it. Now we're going to look at the next one. Let's see, so that's our first example. Now let's do our second example. Okay, so now we're going to get a little more complicated, but don't let it freak you out. Again, this is just like fractions and the things you've already been doing in this unit so far. So just be patient. You can do this. What I'm trying to get, though, guys, is one fraction over one fraction. And here in my numerator, I have two fractions, 2 over a and minus 2 over b. What I have in my denominator is 1 over a squared minus 1 over b squared. So I have two fractions in the numerator, two fractions in the denominator. I cannot do copy dot flip until I have one fraction in the numerator, one fraction in the denominator. So I have to start by saying, okay, and this in the numerator is an expression, not an equation, so I need an LCD. Well, in the numerator here, my lowest common denominator is going to be a times b. My LCD in the denominator is going to be a squared b squared. Okay? So now I'm going to look at this. I'm going to write it down and say 2 over a. What do I need to multiply with a to get ab? Well, that would be b. And if I do it in the denominator, I need to do it in the numerator. And let's write the second one. What do I need to multiply with b to get ab? Well, that would be a. If I do it in the denominator, I have to do it in the numerator. Now we're going to do the next step in the denominator. Remember, do not take these apart. Work the first step of the numerator, then the first step of the denominator, second step of the numerator, second step of the denominator. Because I know without a doubt, if you take these apart, you get all mixed up and you don't get them back together correctly. So do not take them apart. So 1 over a squared. What do I need to multiply with a squared to get a squared? B squared? Well, that would be b squared. If I do that in the denominator, I need to do it in the numerator. And 1 over b squared. What do I need to multiply with b squared to get ab squared? Well, that would be a squared. If I do it in the denominator, I need to do it in the numerator. Okay, so now in my numerator, the denominator of the numerator is ab. And so now I just need to do whatever's left in the numerator. So that would be 2b minus 2a. Now I have one fraction in my numerator. And in my denominator, I have a squared b squared for my denominator. And what do I have for my numerator? 1 times b squared is b squared. Minus 1 times a squared is a squared. Now the next thing I want to do before I do copy.flip is factor everything I can factor. Well, first thing I can factor out is a 2. That leaves me with b minus a. Can't factor anything out of ab. And b squared minus a squared is a difference of squares. So b plus a and b minus a. But I can't factor anything out of a squared, b squared. But now I have one fraction in the numerator and one fraction in the denominator. So now I am going to do copy.flip. And you noticed each time I skip one line between each of these. Okay, and numerator always gets one line, denominator always gets one line. Okay, so copy the numerator exactly like it is over AB, dot, change divide to multiply, and flip the bottom one, copy dot flip, plus A and B minus A. Now let's see what we can cross cancel. Well, I can cross cancel the quantity B minus A, and I can get rid of one AB. That leaves me with 1. If I take 1 away from this, I'm left with an AB. That looks like everything. So now I multiply out my numerator. 2 times 1 times AB is 2AB. And 1 times the quantity B plus A gives me B plus A, and I'm done. Okay, that was our second example. Let's see if I can get a third example in here. Let's see if we have time. So 3. Okay, we've got r squared plus 13r plus 40 over r squared minus 6r all over r squared plus 2r minus 48 over 3r. Now, guys, this is one fraction in the numerator and one fraction in the denominator. But I don't want to do copy.flip yet. I want to factor everything I can factor. So, in my numerator, r squared plus 13r plus 40. Well, I'm going to need a double bubble because it's rule 3a, and so an r. And 40 is 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 3 doesn't go in it for 10, 5 and 8, and that's it. 5 and 8, don't know what happened there. 5 and 8, looks like it's going to work, plus 5, plus 8. When I add these two together, do I get positive 13? Absolutely. plus positive times a positive is a positive, and that's what's in front of the 40. So plus 5 plus 8 over r squared. Well, let me see. I can factor an r out. That gives me r minus 6. That's the best I can do there. And again, double bubble. Rule 3a, 48, 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 5 doesn't go into it, 6 and 8. Looks like 6 and 8, gonna have to be negative 6, positive 8. When I add these two together, I get positive 2, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Negative times a positive is a negative, which is what I'm looking for. So minus 6 plus 8 over 3r. Now, I'm ready to do copy dot flip. So r plus 5, quantity r plus 8 over r minus 6 times, turn the divide to multiply, copy, dot, and flip. We're going to do 3r and r minus 6, r plus 8. Okay, so r plus 8, and because these 3 times r are being multiplied, the r I can get rid of. And that looks like it's it. So now I've got 3 times r plus 5. Remember, you can multiply that out if you want, or you can leave it in factored form. And in the denominator, I have the quantity r minus 6 squared. There you go, guys. Have fun.